Munster produced an epic performance as they beat Leinster at Croke Park. My name's Mark, let's talk rugby. Munster have been getting results so far this season without producing, brilliant performances. They delivered absolutely on that today. Amazing performance from them. Leinster, clueless at times, honestly, in this game. And I think, Leinster absolutely have issues that haven't been addressed for a long time. But let's talk about the game and then we'll come back and talk about the teams later. So, Leinster actually start fairly well. They win a penalty at the first scrum, and it was kind of lucky they did because Farrell absolutely nailed Prendergast as they looked to spread the ball. And I thought Farrell was excellent today. He's been good for Munster all season, and even even when they've been playing poorly and winning, he's looked really good. And I think, really good signing from Connacht. And I'd say since the year they won the URC, Anton Frisch in the middle, they've missed somebody that can really be a dominant player in their midfield. And Farrell is showing that he can be that guy for them now. And he was just immense today. But there was so many good performances on the Munster side of things, and so many really poor performances from Leinster. But Leinster, they win a second scrum penalty. They kick to the corner, go to the maul. Looks like Munster have actually halted it, but they split off and Kelleher emerges out from kind of the melee and over to score, converted for 7-0. But, Munster came very close actually disrupting that maul, and they disrupted the Leinster maul really well for most of the evening. And it was, just that one really that Leinster managed to get that split just in time. But it got them to try. And early on, Leinster actually looking like the better of the two teams. But then we have a lovely step and chicken wing offload from Crowley, who ended up as man of the match. Himself and Byrne, it must have been like a coin toss between those two. He gets Munster on the front foot. Farrell takes it on, and then they kick it into the 22. James Gibson Park scrambles it clear, but it's a 5-metre line out to Munster. Smith then pulled up on the chase there. It was very close. There was 3 Munster players bearing down on Gibson Park. Bounce the ball went his way. But Smith, whatever happened to him, I think maybe a hamstring or something. He was kind of hobbling when he went off. Nankerville on for him. There was a lot of injuries in this game. And, as always, I wish all of the players speedy recoveries, because it looked like some of them may be, a bit more long-term than just a bit of recovery during the week. Munster then have a period in the Leinster 22, but it ends with a knock-on and then another Leinster scrum penalty. But Leinster not being able to use that scrum dominance for any kind of platform. They look, not really coping with the blitz from Munster, but also the fact that Munster keeping men in the line and they're going after the ball, after kind of Leinster have picking their time really to go after the ball to really good effect. Then we have a cross kick to Abrams, who dances his way into the 22. Munster work it up to the line and have it absolutely under siege to get held up over the line, come back for the penalty. They tap it, recycle, and then Brian Gleeson gets there to score, convert over 7-0. Gleeson, he was a star in the Ireland under-22s. A few years ago, he's been coming through in the Munster system, and we're starting to see this kind of wave of really good young players coming through at Munster now as well. And I think that's really given them an impetus that hasn't been there for a long time. Leinster then, they lose Paddy McCarthy. During that period, Porter comes on for him. Crowley then with some lovely footwork as he evades 2 tacklers on his own line and then sends a kick away with his left boot, and really great composure there from him. And, there's obviously this debate in Ireland between Crowley and Prendergast, like who should be the number 1 for Ireland. I'd said for a long time, even though I'm a Leinster fan, Crowley looks the better option for me, and he's been in the better form for a long time. And from my point of view, Prendergast has these issues that, as fans, we can all see it, but if it feels, I'm sure it's not the case, but it feels like nobody's pointing out to him and telling him, you need to improve on these areas, because there's, it's too easy at the moment to knock him off his game. Munster, though, throwing the ball around, and they're back into 22, but they knock on, but showing real ambition, some lovely offloads in their play. And again, we if you look back to the year they won the URC, they were playing that type of rugby where, it was that blend of the old Munster of, let's be really tough in the pack, but also let's have a bit of ambition in the backs. And the difference, I think, between now and then was it took them almost half of the season to actually get things working in the back line, whereas now they're looking like they're a few steps ahead of that this season. So that's really positive for Munster, I think. Larmour then, he's got to go off for an HIA. He looked really wobbly when when he kind of stood up after a few minutes treatment on the pitch. He's replaced by Jimmy O'Brien, and you're thinking straight away, you're not going to see him back today. And that was the case. And, Larmour, he's one of those players where kind of one of the kind of forgotten men, I think, of Irish rugby because of his injury issues. Like so much talent, can step somebody in a phone box, but if he can't put together a run of games where he stays fit, he's only ever going to be kind of in and around the squad as he is at the moment. He's no longer in the frame for Irish selection, that kind of stuff. And with so many young players coming through at Leinster in the backs as well, you kind of worry for a player like him, like such a great talent, but you wonder, how much longer he's actually going to go in the game, given the number of injuries that he's had. But then Munster then strike off a line out. Really good move. It's just inside the 22 to go off the top, down to Crowley. He puts a chip over. Farrell then between 2 Leinster players, gets the ball first, can't gather it, so he just flicks it on with his hand, and then, like in full flight, is able to gather the ball and goes under the post. Just a brilliant bit of skill from him. It's converted for 14 points to 7, and it really already starting to feel like this might be Munster's day. Leinster then attacking the 22. They're looking to move it, but Leinster, the way that Munster have been doing a really good job slowing them down, and because of that, they're kind of bit more predictable in their moves. And Ethan Coughlin, he picks off a pass and he just goes the length to score, convert for 21 points to 7, and Munster on top. We had a bit more after that, but that was the halftime score. In the second half then, Leinster lose RG Stamen shortly after the break. He's replaced by Brian Deeney, and then the next thing then is they get pinged in the middle of the field, and Munster decide to point to the post and just stretch out that little bit. And I thought it was a really good decision from them, just to get that, get out to 3 scores was a great decision. And Crowley makes it as well from, a fair distance. It wasn't like at the limit of his range or anything, but still a pressure kick. And he landed it, and that guy, I think he's got ice in his veins. He's so composed. Leinster then applying pressure close to the line. Van der Fleer gets held up over the line by a combination of first Gavin Coombs. I think as Klein comes in to help him then, but great defence from Munster there. Leinster then to the corner, again from a penalty. Munster halt them all. Leinster decide that they're going to keep it in. When you're thinking, come on, like, just move the ball, do something with it. Instead, they try and set up another little pod off the side of the maul, and Byrne gets in there through the middle and turns the ball over. And as I said, he was absolutely immense today. Back to his best in terms of just being such a nuisance, mauls, breakdowns, getting over the ball, winning penalties, just absolutely brilliant. What you want from Tadhg Byrne. And for me, best forward on the pitch by a stretch, and by a long stretch from any of the Leinster players, honestly. And also, I'm thinking at this stage, an issue that has been there in Leinster for a long time. And again, you wonder, like, how are they going to fix this? Because on-field leadership lacking there. And this game honestly reminded me, like, it's intense game, massive crowd, it's 50-odd thousand at the game. Great atmosphere, intense battle between the teams. Very, lots of physicality from Munster, played at a really high tempo. And it just reminded me of the Heineken, if only, the Champions Cup finals, that Leinster have been in, not last year, but the previous years before that. And pretty much the same thing, right? Leinster chasing the game, look completely clueless, and there's no leadership on the field to say, listen, what we're doing isn't working, we need to change. And, you have to look at kind of some of the senior players in that team. Josh van der Fleer was the captain. You've got to look at James Gibson-Park at 9, because a lot of the time he's the guy at 9 there. And, when Leinster getting counter-rucked or wherever, he's not calling players in. He's not, situation like that, like, either forwards have to take on the responsibility and say, okay, we got to keep them honest. Let's pick and go around the edges of the ruck, and tie them in that way, and then create some space. They never did that. It was always try and secure the ball. Gibson-Park comes in. We'll set up another pod that is completely telegraphed to the opposition, and lo and behold, we get smashed on the gain line, and we don't get to go forward that we're looking for. And it was just repeat, and then Hail Mary, let's try and go wide now when it's not on, and knock the ball on or get turned over or isolated or wherever. And you've got to look at the leadership in that team, because it happens so many times to them, and not once, like just try to remember, if you're a Leinster fan, try to remember the last time Leinster went more than a score behind a team and actually came back to beat them. Like, and that tells you, it's very rare that it happens with them. And you look at the best teams down through the years, even like old Leinster teams or Munster teams or wherever, they had that ability to, even if they're not playing great, to stick in a game and find scores from somewhere. This Leinster team do not have that. What this Leinster team are good at, and we talked about it before, is they get themselves ahead the way they did, right? Try and hit the opposition quickly with a few scores, right? Overpower them, and then sit back themselves, soak up the pressure, and once that they kind of break the opposition in terms of just keeping them out, then they go on and stretch the lead after that. And then the last kind of 20 minutes is kind of a back and forth where the game's already decided, and it doesn't really matter what scores go in. So Leinster are not used to getting to 55, 60 minutes in the game and being behind, and especially being behind by more than a score. And they seem absolutely clueless as to how to approach it. Like, they just, it's like we talk about when Leinster are good, they look like a machine because they're so well oiled. Like, all the intricate plays and stuff like that. But also like a machine, when it's not working, it doesn't seem that there's an easy fix for it either. It seems like almost like, the players on the pitch can't fix it because the coaches have to take it apart and see what's wrong with it and then put it back together and hope that the issue doesn't happen again. And that's what it feels like, is that, it's not a case of fixing issues. It's a case of getting back to the way you were, winning collisions and getting out to that lead again. And then everything looks fine again. But the next time something like this happens, they still don't have any answers. It's crazy. But let's get back to the game. So Leinster, they win a penalty at the scrum. The only good part of the Leinster performance today was the scrum. They tap it, continue to the siege on that Munster line, but then Byrne turns the ball over again, and Munster are able to kick it clear. Leinster then go through a ton of phases in the 22, but Munster holding them out. Byrne again over the ball, wins a penalty, and they must be sick of his blue scrum cap over the ball at this stage. Then back into 22, time running out, Lowe drives out wide, but then Nankerville gets over the ball to win a penalty. He did really well having to come on out wide as well. I thought he was very good. In the midfield, I feel like he's hit and miss, honestly, in the midfield, but being able to slot in out on the wing and defend the way he did, I thought he was excellent today. Munster then, they move back upfield. They go wide through Abrams. He finds Farrell. Farrell going for the line. He's short, but then Frawley comes in at the side. We have a TMO check, and he's adjudged to stop the probable try. So penalty try is given. He gets a yellow card. Honestly, that one, a bit of a head scratcher for me, because it looked like it was the act of scoring. So he should be allowed to kind of just slide in and prevent the try. So I don't know what interpretation was there that was different. Maybe it's just it's very possible lack of understanding of the rules for me, but commentary were the same. Weren't sure why it was given. I'm sure there's a rules near there a bit to say, well, actually it's XYZ. But yeah, it just felt very strange. But we're at 31-7 now after the penalty try. That's a bonus point try for Munster. One thing I will say is, Munster absolutely deserved their bonus point try win as well. Such was their superiority in this game. And, Leinster fan or not, and, it doesn't matter whether it came by that or wherever, Munster absolutely deserved that bonus point try. We then have a round of handbags up the other end of the field. Temper's boiling over. Leinster trying to get over. But Munster just keep holding them out. And I think Lowe starts the whole thing off. Obviously just massive frustration from him. Then Coombs goes to the bin right to death for playing the 9. Leinster tap the penalty, and Penny gets over for a consolation try. That's converted for 31-14, and that was the full-time score. So we're going to have a look at the stats, then we'll come back and talk about the teams again afterwards. So let me pull the stats up here. Let's hope that the stats are on the website, because it's been very hit and miss this season in terms of getting stats from the URC official website, but we'll see what we can do here today. So let's see. So the website's been a little bit slow. There we go. Pull that up. We do have stats. Well, we have a stats section. Okay, there we go. So tries scored, 2 by Leinster, 4 by Munster, so bonus point win for them. Possession 65-35, so Leinster were plenty of the ball. Offloads 18-6. But again, the offloads from Leinster, they're these kind of sideways offloads that really don't have a massive impact in terms of like you're giving the ball to guys standing still, no momentum on it, and most of the offloads were like that. Meters gained then 532 to 307. So Leinster making more meters with the ball, but not the crucial meters to get those scores. Clean breaks then, we got, 9-6 in favour of Leinster. Defenders beaten 25 to 20. So, Leinster creating those chances, those gaps, but again, the ability to finish, the ability to spot where the space was, where the opportunities were after making a break, or even in the build up to a break, not very good. Territory then 69 to 31. So again, lots of the ball in the right areas of the field. Number of tackles 118 to 267. Missed tackles 20 to 26. So Leinster then at 76%, which is very poor even for like Leinster. We're used to seeing Leinster with that, with their blitz being kind of lower than the other teams, but normally they're kind of low 80s or like, around the 79 mark. So 76 is below normal for them. Munster 82. For a game like this, it's decent. It's not as high as you'd like to be. Again, you kind of look at 85% as kind of a, the average pass mark for URC. But when the games are as intense in this, they tend to drop off, and you see it's dropped off on both sides. Turnovers won then, just 5 for Leinster and 16 for Munster, and that was the massive thing, really. Like Munster were just so good at turning that ball over and negating the Leinster attack and taking any momentum away from them as well. Then kicks and play. Leinster with just 12, 28 from Munster, and some of the kicks from Crowley, especially, were real peaches too. And Leinster, a lot of the kicks from Leinster were kind of, after Crowley had kicked down, they then kicked back, and they've lost ground out of it. Then kicking success 100% each. I think the most difficult kick in the game was probably Crowley's penalty. Kicking meters then 319 for Leinster, 803 for Munster. So you can see from the boot of Crowley, they gained a massive amount of meters. Kicks retained just 1 from Leinster and 6 for Munster. Lineouts won then 16 for Leinster and 9 for Munster, both at 100%, and not really a massive contest in the scrum because both teams are kind of down set for kind of maul defence. Scrums won then 6 for Leinster to 4 for Munster, 1 loss for Leinster, 2 for Munster. So Leinster at 86% to 67 from Munster. And again, that one part of the game where Leinster were on top was that scrum. Then discipline, yellow cards, 1 each. Both coming late in the game, so didn't have massive, impact on kind of momentum in the game or anything like that. Penalties conceded then 7 from Leinster, 7 from Leinster, which is, it's good in one way in terms of you're always looking to keep it in single figures, right? But it was one of those games where you felt like there was, such a lack of aggression from Leinster. You wouldn't have minded them giving away a few more penalties, honestly. It would kind of G'd them up a bit. And then 14 penalties from Munster. But the thing was, they obviously gave away some of the scrum and, in other areas of the field as well. But they felt confident that, even if they give away the penalty, that they weren't going to cave on the back of it. So, and then we then have attacking penalties, 4 from Leinster, 3 from Munster, and then defensive penalties, 3 from Leinster and 11 from Munster. Okay, so let's talk about the teams. Well, we talked about Leinster a lot already. I'm a Leinster fan, so probably going to talk about it a bit more after that. But let's talk about Munster. Absolutely brilliant performance. They didn't have a scrum in this pretty much. Like they were, anytime they're putting the ball in the scrum, it's basically in and out as quick as you can. Line out was good. They actually got, one of the tries came off a move off a line out. So set piece was kind of 50-50 really for them. But the rest of the play was brilliant. Like their intensity, at the breakdown, their line speed in defence, their ability as well. Once, the chances came, linking up backs and forwards, great handling, great awareness of space, great decision making, kicking game, all there really from them, and again, if you're looking at this as kind of, just looking at kind of 10, if this is an audition for let's say the start in Chicago against the All Blacks, well then you've got to give it to Crowley. There's no contest on it. For me, again, as a Leinster fan, my thoughts are going to, I talked about actually last week, I think, I think it was last week, about, how close realistically is Harry Byrne to actually putting pressure on Prendergast for his spot at Leinster. Like, let's forget about his spot with Ireland for the moment, because for me, looking at the way he's performing, I'd have Harry Byrne in if fit, because that's the problem with Harry Byrne, right? It's very hard to actually keep that guy fit for a run of games. But if he's fit, I'd be playing him at 10, and I'd be saying to Prendergast, listen, you're on the bench. The reason that you're on the bench is because of these issues that, teams are targeting, and you need to work on it, and put the resources behind it. Get somebody in, especially to work on it with him, and fix the issues with his game. The way that James Lowe did, when he was told, you're not going to get picked for Ireland again because of your defensive issues. You need to go away and fix it, and he did. And it feels like that's where Prendergast is at the moment, is in his development. But it feels like that's not how the Leinster coaches see it. It's certainly not how the Ireland coaches see it either. But like, they're the professionals, so what can you do, right? But Crowley was magnificent today. Again, his all-around game, he just feels like a more rounded player, and he's got that composure, that he doesn't get flustered with stuff, and he still takes chances. He's not like just playing the percentages all the time, and he's coming up with the big plays for his team to G them up, and that's what you really want, right? And then you look at a young guy like Coughlin today, in for Casey, who, out injured, and really delivered. Then, someone like Gavin Coombs, overlooked for Ireland selection, came in off the bench and put in a massive shift. We had a Dogbu in the first half. Unfortunately, he's another one I think went off injured. Hopefully, again, wish a speedy recovery to anyone who got injured. But he looked really good while he was on the field. You got Gleeson there. Byrne, absolutely amazing. Like, you're talking about leadership lacking in the Leinster pack. Like, Byrne has that in spades. Byrne is just like, right, everybody follow me. Like, I'm into the breach. Let's go over the top, guys. That kind of thing, right? Just gets in there, and doesn't matter how well the opposition are playing or wherever, like, he puts in a performance that kind of brings the rest of the team up a level as well. And we saw that from him today. And then, you look at the likes of, again, Farrell, absolutely amazing in the midfield. And it feels like for that Munster midfield, he really was the missing piece, since the kind of, back in whatever it was, 2 or 3 seasons ago, where they had Fekitoa and Anton Frisch in their midfield, and those two really clicked together, and Munster just looked really good on the back of that. Farrell is bringing that to their midfield, and I think it's really helping somebody like Crowley as well, that he knows it's not just a case of giving the ball to someone and then having to make decisions for them, or having to go on a wrap and get the ball back and make something else happen. You can give the ball to Farrell. He's going to make something happen for you and take pressure off Crowley. Not that Crowley needs pressure taken off him, but if you do that, then it means you're then giving Crowley more time to scan the field, see what's on, and come up with, okay, we've made a break there, but now the space is over on the other side, so I'm going to line things up for us to attack over there. And you're seeing that, and then you're seeing the likes of Abrams, I thought was excellent as well, out wide. And there are a lot of really good performers from Munster today. Now, the challenge from them is, let's keep that going. Not just just one more round in the URC before we go on the break for the November internationals, but keep it going then, but then also keep it going afterwards, when we're going to get into that period where it's URC mixed with the beginnings of the Champions Cup, because Champions Cup is where Munster have not delivered in a very long time. And, Munster, very proud province, and they've got a massive, legacy and a massive kind of affinity as well with the old Heineken Cup. And you as an Ireland fan, forget about Leinster. You want to see Munster doing well in the competition, because it feels like that's where they belong. And not just making up the numbers, getting in there and really being like an actual contender. And if they can play like that, there's no reason why they can't be. But can they keep it going? Over the different rounds, all the different things that are happening, injuries, etc., players coming in and out of the team. That's the next step, I feel, for them. But today, this win, it's been like a long time coming, obviously, for the Munster players, Munster fans. Where in a regular season game, they've absolutely had the wood over Leinster. It's been a long time since that. And I think, the Irish game was better for, having that rivalry kind of sparked again and rekindled, because one thing you can be sure of is that the Leinster players now are going to be motivated by this as well, in terms of, right, we need to lift our game. So I think it's good for Irish rugby to see that performance from Munster, and not just have it like the way it's been in previous years, just a procession for Leinster. So as a Leinster fan, I'm disappointed, but as a rugby fan and an Irish rugby fan, I'm delighted with Munster's win here. Absolutely well deserved from them. And let me know what you think down in the comments.